Last week, I got the LEGO Goat Boat set, and since building it and reviewing it, I've been slowly tinkering around with the parts, designing my own alternate Viking ship, and ultimately making a model that I like a lot more than the original set, and that's what I want to show you today. Welcome in. I said that I got this set not for the build, but for the parts, and that's because I always had the vision of building something like this. Now, to keep it simple and give myself a bit of a challenge, I'm only using parts that came on the original set. Also, all my other Legos are back home and I'm at college, so I have to make this work. I had 3 goals when designing the alternate build. First, it had to be smaller. The original set was quite long and wide, and I wanted to downsize it a bit. Second, it needed to have a mast. The original Goat Boat had magic and technology to make it go, but this is meant to be a traditional ship and so will rely on the wind. And third, I wanted to design a nicer prow. The heads on the original set are okay, but we can do so much better. One of the first things I designed is this head that I think is going to go on the prow of the ship. It's very much based off of the goat head design, but I added the snakes to give it a little bit more dragon style to it, and yeah, hope that looks good. After about an hour of designing and prototyping, this is what I got. I sent these images over to my brother, who's a big LEGO fan as well, and he's basically my YouTube consultant, and he had a couple of suggestions. So it's been a couple of days, and I made a few changes. The main one is that I added this pattern on the side of the hull. I think that's going to look really good. Also, I asked my brother what he thought of the design, and he wanted the mast a little shorter, so I shrunk it down a bit. I made sure that the reddish brown is only a stripe up the middle, whereas before some of these pieces were also brown, and then I added this detail on the front of the mast just because there's these pieces left over and they look pretty nice. That about finishes the individual parts. Now it's time to slowly and awkwardly assemble it. Due to the limited bricks I had to work with, the design is pretty fragile, but I don't really mind since this is meant more for display than for play. So yeah, that's the model. The dragon's head prow on the front looks great, and there's the space in the back to swap the mounted crossbow with the table. The mast does wobble a bit, that's just kind of unavoidable given the mechanism. I basically adapted the pieces used on the goat's body to lock the plates in vertically, which is a design I'm pretty proud of, but it certainly isn't perfect. I also tried to plate off the underside as much as possible using cheese slopes under the dark tan curving pieces, and the model rests flat on the ground. This was really challenging to pull off since the set uses these pieces, and they would have created a tiny half-plate gap between the ship and the water, and I really wanted to avoid that. There were also some leftover plates, and I used those to fill the gaps between the hull and the floor plates. I was even able to work in those blue studs along the railing, and they don't look too shabby. Here's some of the extra plates laid out next to the ship, and as we can see, it is about 32 studs long, so that's a lot more reasonable and smaller than the other model. Will fit into mocks much easier. And even after designing this, you are left with a ton of extra pieces, so if this is all you were looking for out of the set, this is just bonus. It's a great deal. So in the end, we checked all the boxes, and I have a realistic Viking ship from what was once a goofy Marvel set. So I think we can call this a success. If you want to see other alternate builds, let me know. And until next time, farewell.